कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमो ब्रह्मण्य देवाय गो ब्राह्मण हिताय च जगद्धिताय कृष्णाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। Hare Krishna everyone. I welcome all of you once again for this wonderful session on Bhagavad Gita that is happening since last 2 weeks, and we are discussing chapter 2 from the Bhagavad Gita. We have already covered 25 shlokas, and today we will continue from shloka number 26. So just to have a quick recap, in the previous session we discussed about transmigration, about reincarnation, the difference between them. We understood that how we are not this body, we are the spirit souls. And a very interesting point Krishna makes is that how this body is like a dress. So just like we are not so attached to our dress, we should not be attached to this body, which is actually a dress of the soul. So we don't have to worry when the body is destroyed. So that was a very beautiful analogy, very easy to understand. We also understood that how there are different types of weapons, and there are weapons of fire, there are weapons of water, there are weapons of tornadoes, there are weapons of mantras, sound. There are so many varieties of weapons, but none of these weapons can actually hurt or kill the soul. All these different weapons can kill the body, which is made up of 5 elements, but they cannot touch the soul. So that was another very interesting thing that we have understood from the previous session. We also understood that how life cannot come through some chemicals. We want to elaborate on that a little more today, because it's very important to know that life is not simply some chemical combination. There is more to the existence of life. We also understood the characteristics of the soul. What is avyakta? What is achintya? So how the soul is not visible to us, and achintya, it is inconceivable to us. And we also understood that the soul is gender neutral. The soul is neither male, neither female. the soul is gender neutral. So we should not say, oh, I am male. No, the body is male, the body is female. But the soul is actually gender neutral. So that's also very important for this life. So today, let's continue from a very interesting discussion which Krishna had stopped. Of course, he never stopped. We had stopped because of the time constraint. So we will continue from where we had stopped in the previous session. And I really appreciate all the devotees here on Open Talk also who have joined me today. Thank you so much, Pramod, and everybody else who has joined today. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate all of you for being here today and participating in this discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. So I request Dave to come first because he was the first one to join today. So unmute yourself, Dave, and please repeat the shloka. Shloka number 26. Atachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. Let's do that once again. Atachainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitum arhasi. Please repeat the translation. If however you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament. O mighty arm. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So here in this particular sloka, Krishna is going to continue and explain to us that it is a very special thing, this whole understanding of the soul being nitya jatam, nitya. The soul is eternal actually, and the soul is non-matter or anti-matter. We should understand this principle very important because I think Prabhupada mentions in the purport also that how even during Krishna's time there were some class of people who thought that the soul is not spiritual but it is actually a material thing. And the soul is actually created at some point of time because of some material combinations, and that is how the soul comes into existence, and at the point of death, the soul again goes. So this understanding is there in the society, and especially if you see the Buddhist philosophy. So the Buddhists, they don't believe in the existence of the soul. They say that everything is shunya, everything is zero after death. So the five elements, the earth will get mixed with the universal earth, the air will get mixed with the universal air, the ether will get mixed with the universal ether, so water in our body will get mixed with the universal water. So that is how they think. They do not have an understanding of the soul. And such people are called as Lokayatikas or Vaibhashikas. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that these people are called Lokayatikas or Vaibhashikas, people who do not believe in the existence of the soul. And this is exactly the concept of the modern scientist as well. Because many scientists today, they also talk about the existence of life in a similar fashion. For example, Charles Darwin, he came up with this theory of origins, the origin of life, the origin of how life evolved. and the theory of evolution he explained. You should know that there is a lot of history to Darwin before he actually came up with this theory. In his own life, there were certain experiences when he used to go to the church was telling them something, but they did not follow themselves. The priest and the pastors were actually dominating and they were controlling the people of the congregation there. So he did not like. He thought, why should people be controlled by someone else? And at a very early stage of his life, he lost his very young child. So all these things created an idea that I should do something to prove that God does not exist. And that is how, with that intention in his mind, when he started doing research on science itself, he came up with this theory of evolution and the theory of origin of life and so many things which try to prove that this existence of life is because of some chemical combination. And last session we also discussed that how there are many scientists who say that they have created artificial life. But can we create artificial life? No. Even in the laboratory, they actually just take the living cell from a man, the semen, and they inject it in the mother's womb and fertilize the egg. But they cannot really create the living cell. Nobody is able to create a living cell like we have. And we have billions and billions of cells in our body. And we cannot create them. It's so complicated. So we should know that life actually comes from life. It does not come from matter. This matter, this body, cannot grow if the soul exits this body. Right now this body is growing because the presence of the soul. Moment the soul exits, this body will not grow. You see? See, right now, when you listen to some music, the sound is not created by the soundtrack. You have a CD or you have the old, of course, the cassettes have all gone now. Some CDs are also gone. So you see, but imagine you have a CD of nice musical album that you have. The sound is not created by the soundtrack. Actually, the sound is created by a person. So we should also see that right now when I am speaking, it's not simply the body which is creating the sound. The presence of the soul makes this body create that sound. If the soul exits this body cannot create any sound. So please understand, this is a very important difference we should know. So Krishna is saying in this particular verse that the soul is Nitya. It is Shashvata. It is Nitya. When something is Nitya, why do you have to lament? You don't have to lament, is it not? It's not a problem. Just imagine, what is the definition of a problem? Please understand this, very important, okay? What is the definition of problem? Anything is called as a problem only when there is a solution. When there is a solution for something, that is a problem. So what is a problem? Problem is, what you call as a problem means, a problem means it has to have a solution. Suppose there is no solution, then there is no problem. If there is no problem, then why do you have to lament? Because sometimes there are certain things which are beyond our control. There are absolutely no solutions for them. So when you don't have solutions for certain things, then it is not a problem only. As whenever you call there is a problem means there should be a solution. If there is no solution, it is not a problem at all. So please understand this. You should not get simply overwhelmed by something which you cannot solve. Because if there is no solution for something, then it is not a problem at all. But you think there is some problem, then there is a solution, it's only a matter of finding it. Okay? So, these Vaibhashikas, these people, they promote such theories of evolution and theories of origin of life from matter. Such pseudo-scientists or pseudo-religionists are many in this universe, in this planet, who are trying to deviate people from the actual truth. So we should understand truth from a bona fide spiritual master and from the scripture. Only then your knowledge will be very clear. But Krishna is making a very important point here. Just in case, Arjuna, if you believe the Vaibhashika, that means if you believe that there is no such spiritual soul and you think that it is all the chemicals only which are creating life. Just in case, Arjuna, if you believe that this life is made out of some chemicals, then do not worry. Because after death, it is only chemicals after all. Only the chemicals are destroyed. So when just chemicals are destroyed, then there is no karmic reaction. Why do you have to worry about karmic reaction? Oh, I have to suffer in the hell, like you mentioned in the first chapter. Is it not? Arjuna mentioned this in the first chapter, saying that, oh, if I kill all my relatives, then I will incur sin and I have to suffer in the hell. But now Krishna is saying, just in case if you think that everything is just made up of chemicals and just the chemicals are getting destroyed, then where is the question of sinful reaction? There is no question of sinful reaction at all. So you don't have to worry about karmic reaction. Just see. So although Krishna is not promoting this theory, but just in case, to clarify, Krishna is making all these different varieties of things. It's very interesting to know. Very important to know. So this is how Krishna has explained certain things, and let's go and discuss the next shloka, because that is also very interesting, and I have some very interesting things to share today in the upcoming verses. So Achyutanji, you were the second to join, so let's repeat. So kindly chant shloka number 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur
जातिस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः
ध्रुवं जन्मामृतस्य च
ध्रुवं जन्मामृतस्य च
तस्मादपरिहार्येते
तस्मादपरिहार्येते
न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि.
न त्वं शोचितुम् अर्हसि.
Let's do that once again. जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः
जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः
ध्रुवं जन्मामृतस्य च
ध्रुवं जन्मामृतस्य च
तस्मादपरिहार्येते
तस्मादपरिहार्येते
न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि.
न त्वं शोचितुम् अर्हसि.
Please repeat the translation. For one who has taken his birth,
For one who has taken his birth,
death is certain.
death is certain.
And for one who is dead,
For one who is dead,
birth is certain.
birth is certain.
Therefore,
So,
in the unavoidable discharge of your duties,
whatever discharge of the duty,
you should not lament.
you should not lament.
Thank you so much.
Very
So, very interesting shloka and a very important shloka, and I really request all of you to memorize this shloka as well, shloka number 27, because it is one shloka which you can memorize and it can be very handy sometimes in your life. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad apriyaryate natvam sochitam arhasi. So very nice Krishna is saying that anybody who has taken birth, jatasya, for that person, mrityu is compulsory. Or anybody who takes birth, death is certain. And anybody who dies, birth is certain. Dhruvam janma mritasya cha. For anybody who takes birth, death is certain. For anybody who dies, birth is certain. So this cycle of birth and death is what we are stuck into. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. We are constantly rotating in this cycle of birth and death. And this cycle is not like the cycle that we ride. Because in this cycle of birth and death, there are no breaks only. There is a break, but we don't have breaks right now. We are simply continuously without breaks moving in the cycle of birth and death. So, is it not a good way, good time now, at least in this life, to put a break to this birth and death, the cycle of birth and death? So important, is it not? So, what Krishna is telling basically here is, when we are born with a twin brother. All of us, twin brother or twin sister, we all are born with our twin brother or twin sister. And who is that? Death. The moment we take birth, this twin brother called death is also there with us. Please understand. Every time, every moment that we are passing by, we are living in this world, is actually taking us closer to death. So the twin brother is already born. And don't think that this particular twin brother is what only we humans have. No. This twin brother called death is for each and every one from Brahma to Indra to Indragopa. What is the Indragopa? Indragopa means the insect. An insect is also called Indragopa. So even the king of the gods, Indra, even he has to one day exit from this world. Even he has to die. What to speak of Indra, the grandfather of all the Devatas and the creator, the secondary creator, Brahma, although he lives for 3.11 trillion years. If you want to make a note, you can make a note. 3.11 trillion years is what Brahma lives. How this calculation of Brahma's life is done, we will take this in another session going forward, because it's very interesting. Brahma lives for 3.11 trillion years. Can you imagine? That's a relativity of time. I'll explain to you. It's very beautiful to understand. You may think, oh, how Brahma can live for so many years and I live only for 80 years or 90 years or max to max 100 years. This relativity of time can be understood with a very simple example. See, during the rainy season, sometimes you will see there will be a lot of these insects, the flies, they will all come all of a sudden and they will all storm towards the light, the street pole especially. So when they are born, these insects, they take birth in the morning and they start growing and sometime by evening they reproduce many children, and at night they all go to the light and they will keep storming at the light. Morning you will see them, they are all dead. So the lifespan of that insect, that moth, the whole life is just one day. In that one day, it takes birth, it grows, it reproduces, and then it enjoys, and then it dies. All its 100 years are just finished in one day, according to our time frame. So similarly, our 100 years is just a matter of few seconds or probably few moments for Brahma, that's all. We are thinking for 100 years. But for Brahma, this is nothing. This is very small time. It's just a fraction of a second. So this is how this death, although Brahma lives for 3.11 trillion years, even he has to die. Even Brahma has to die one single day. Nobody can escape. That's why I'm telling you, this cycle of birth and death can be stopped in human form of life. We are all very special and we are so fortunate that we have this human form. There are so many living entities. Right now on your desk there will be a mosquito or there will be an ant or an insect which is crawling, a spider is crawling, which is so unfortunate right now. Because it is not having the human form to inquire what is spiritual life, what is my existence. But you are also fortunate. to sit and understand and hear the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So please, 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 my request, do not waste this human form of life. Human form of life is very special because you can ask this fundamental question. So here, what is birth? When the soul comes in contact with matter, it is called birth. And when the soul is separated from matter, it is called death. As simple as that. Soul coming in contact with matter is birth. Soul disconnecting from matter is called death. But actually, the soul has neither birth nor death. See, just this knowledge, oh, I am the soul and I am not going to die, so wonderful. So nice it is to know that I am not going to die. None of us are going to die. So wonderful it is. Is it not? So, very nicely once this Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple iPad and everything that we know. So, in his commencement speech at Stanford University, he spoke very well and he shared one of his thoughts. He said that how every single day Steve Jobs stands in front of the mirror and he asks himself, if today happens to be my last day, then what will I do? If today happens to be my last day, then what will I do? And he told the students, I beg you, you keep asking this question every single day to yourself. And I'm sure that one day this will become true. Because one day we all have to face that. Because one single day, we don't know which day it is, but that will be our last day. So all of us should understand, when I say the last day, it is the last day of this body, not the last day of the soul, because there is no last day for the soul. The soul is eternal. So nice. So Krishna is saying, Natvam sochitam adhasi. Why do you lament again? When the body is going to anyway die, anyway it's going to take birth, again it's going to die. So don't worry. Why do you have to worry? Don't worry. Natvam sochitam adhasi. In the previous sloka he said, Natvam sochitam adhasi. So don't worry. Don't worry. Sochitam means lament. Don't worry. Arjuna, don't worry. So very interesting. Let's understand the next shloka, and that's very interesting. Lasya, please unmute yourself and let's chant the 28th shloka, a very beautiful shloka. So Lasya, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir.
Avyaktaadini bhutani
Avyaktaadini bhutani
Vyaktamadhyani bharata
Vyaktamadhyani bharata
Avyaktanidhananyeva
Avyaktanidhananyeva
Tatra ka paridevana.
Tatra ka paridevana.
Let's repeat once again. Avyaktadini bhutani
Avyaktaadini bhutani
Vyaktamadhyani bharata
Vyaktamadhyani bharata
Avyaktanidhananyeva
Avyaktanidhananyeva
Tatra ka paridevana.
Tatra ka paridevana.
Please repeat the translation. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation?
So what need is there for lamentation?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So very beautifully here Krishna is saying Avyakta. Avyakta means unmanifest. Avyakta means something that you cannot see. Vyakta. Vyakta means something that you can perceive of. Avyakta means something that you cannot see or something that you cannot perceive. So this life or this soul is avyakta in the beginning. Avyak adini. Adi means beginning. So Adi in the initial state, Adi state, this soul is Avyakta, it is unmanifest. When the soul enters the mother's womb through the man's semen, it is Avyakta. You know, when the egg is fertilizing, it is completely Avyakta because you don't know what it is, what's happening in the mother's womb, we are having no clue. Because it is completely, no formation of the body is done yet. So it is Avyakta. But when the child is born, then it is Avyakta. It is Vyakta Madhyani Bharata. Madhyani. Madhyani means what? In the middle state. In the interim state. So in the interim state, what is happening? It is Vyakta. Now we, right now, as I am speaking and you are listening, what is happening? We are Vyakta. And in this Vyakta state, oh, I am an engineer, I am a doctor, I am a manager, I am a prime minister, I am a chief minister, and we are displaying so many characteristics. Vyakta, we are able to perceive things and we are able to make people perceive our own characteristics also. So I can completely feel what you people are speaking, how you are all looking. You see, I am able to perceive. That means Vyakta in the middle state. And at the point of death, Krishna is saying, again Avyakta Nidhananyeva, Nidhana. At the point of death, that which had come from Avyakta has again become Avyakta in the end. So what is there? It was Avyakta in the beginning and in the end. Only in the interim state, we are now Vyakta. We are able to perceive the soul. But in the before Adi and at the point after death, we are unable to perceive the soul. So this is how Krishna is very nicely explaining that the soul is actually Avyakta in the beginning, Avyakta in the end. Only in the interim state, it is we are able to see it. I'll give you another very simple analogy here. Let's understand this. Let's understand this. See, when there is a barren land, or I should say a big plot, it is all empty and nothing is there except for few trees. What happens is, when people start working, when there is a big builder who comes and says, oh, this is a very beautiful place. And of course in Mumbai it's very hard to find a big place like that, especially in the city. But then still, you know, if you can find a big place and a builder sees, oh, this is wonderful. So what happens, that plain land, slowly, which was absolutely nothing there, the building will start cropping up. Tuck, 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 floors after floors after floors. The building that is coming up, it is all made up of what? Same earthly elements only. Earth material only, that is what is coming up there. So in the initial stage, before the building, it is Avyakta. But the building, when it is building up, it is becoming Vyakta. And after 150 years or 100 years or so, the building will again collapse. It will again become Avyakta. So it was Avyakta, it became Vyakta, and again Avyakta. So this is exactly what is happening to our body also. So why lament for such a thing? See, we don't lament when we are experiencing pain in a dream. See, in a dream, there is a tiger that is chasing you. Just imagine, Dave, you are in a deep sleep and suddenly you get a dream and then there is a tiger that is chasing you. You are so horrified. It is very painful. You are thinking, oh, I am going to die. And the tiger is coming closer and closer and closer. And then it pounces upon you. And then you, out of fear, you scream and you yell. And then when you scream and yell, you actually wake up in your room. You are not in the forest. When you get to know, oh my God, it was just a dream, you feel so nice. But that dream was so real. You were so attached to that dream that the tiger chasing in the dream, you felt it is true. And in the dream, it was giving you so much of pain. But when you came out of the dream, you are so peaceful. You are so relaxed now. This is exactly what we should know and understand, that this current life, although it is appearing so real, See, my hand is there, I'm able to touch, I'm able to feel everything. This is a dream. This life that we are calling, oh, I am a human, I am Achyutanji, I am Lasya, I am Heenaji, I am Vinodji. You know, we are all thinking, and I'm Pramod, I am Sam Joseph. We are all thinking that we are this body, identifying with this body, but actually this life is like a dream. So when you awaken yourself spiritually, then you come out of the dream and you feel so relaxed. Oh my God, it is so wonderful. It is liberating. Why? Because I am not going to die. I have come out of the dream now. So we are all right now in a dream called this body. So we have to come out. We have to break this dream. As long as you are in the dream, the tiger of death will keep chasing you. The tiger of death will keep chasing you. But the moment you wake up, you will see there is no tiger. There is no death. So hope this makes it very clear to you, and it's very, very interesting to know about this. So the dream is unreal, okay? So the dream is unreal, completely unreal. So this is what in the verse number 28 Krishna has explained. So Hina ma'am, please unmute yourself and let's chant the next shloka. It's very, very interesting, okay? Okay, so let's chant this 29th shloka and we will continue our discussion from there, okay? And I will also take your question, Pramod, very soon. During this verse itself, I will try to explain. Along with this verse, I will touch upon your question as well. Okay, so the shloka is very beautiful, 29th shloka. Ascharyavat pashyati kashchit enam.
Ascharyavat pashyati kashchid enam.
Ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanyah.
Ascharyavat vadati tathaya chanyah.
Ascharyavat chainam anya shrunoti.
Ascharyavat chainam anya shrunoti.
Shrutva-pyenam vedanachaiva kaschit.
Shrutvapi enam veda na kayashashchit.
Wonderful. Let's do that once again. Let's do the translation. Please repeat. Some look on the soul as amazing.
Some look on the soul as amazing.
Some describe him as amazing.
Some describe him as amazing.
And some hear of him as amazing.
And some hear of him as amazing.
While others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Thank you so much. So, another very, very, very interesting, and you see this whole shloka is so beautiful. Multiple times the word Ascharyavat is being used in this particular shloka. Ascharya means what? Amazing, very fascinating. So this soul, for many, many people, it's very fascinating. Some people, they see the soul as amazing. Ascharyavat. Pashyati means to see. And there are some Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyam. Some describe vadati means to describe the soul as very amazing. And then Ascharyavat chainam anya shrunoti. Shrunoti means listen, to hear. And there are people who hear about the soul and they feel very amazing. So this whole process with dealing of the soul and understanding of the soul is very amazing all put together. Just imagine the soul is so minute. I explained to you the size of the soul in the previous session. It is 1 by 10,000th the tip of the hair. 1 by 10,000th part of the tip of the hair. That is the size of the soul. Extremely minute. And this minute spirit soul within us is animating the big whale in the ocean. It is animating the big elephant in the forest. It is animating the big giraffe in the forest. It is also animating a small amoeba. It is animating the small bacteria. It is also animating so many microbes. So every living entity is actually getting its power for animation because of the presence of the soul. So minute particle, a spiritual particle, a spirit soul is actually giving us the life force. Right now we are all able to interact with each other because of that minute spirit soul within us. So wonderful, so wonderful. So how amazing it is, just imagine. And very interestingly, some acharyas, some great acharyas have also mentioned that how the spirit soul is not alone in the heart. There is also the super soul within the heart. So actually, it is the super soul, the Paramatma, the supreme consciousness. He is the one who is enabling me to speak right now. It is He who is enabling you to hear the sound that I am creating. So every action is being enabled actually by the Paramatma within the heart. And very interestingly, just see how amazing it is. The Paramatma within my heart is inspiring me to speak, and the same Paramatma within your heart is sitting and inspiring you to hear. Isn't it amazing? So the Lord is so amazing that He is doing all these interactions between us, sitting inside us, and it is so amazing. So we should know that this soul, once Swami Prabhupada also, he was giving a session in US, in America, to some of his American disciples. And then he was saying, I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. And then all the disciples thought, oh, because Swamiji is quite elevated, he is not the body, he is soul. But we are all bodies only. Because that is how many people are so attached to the body. They just don't want to think that we are the soul. Because all through our education, we have only been taught that how I am this body. In our education, we have not taught that yes, there is an existence beyond this body. So that is why it's very difficult to break these perceptions. Very, very difficult to break this perception. That is why at very young age we should understand this. And I am really happy that Lasya and Devan, they are all coming together at very young age. They are all hearing this. Wonderful. This will really help them going forward in their life. Because it is so wonderful now. So, then, many times, many disciples of Swami Prabhupada also they have mentioned this. When Prabhupada saw them, he saw through them. What it means, saw through them, it means that he just did not see their body, but he saw through their body and actually saw the spirit soul. There was a time when Prabhupada, once he was in a garden, he was doing his chanting, and one of his disciples, he was also chanting. And then there was a small millipede which was moving, and which was moving across, and then this disciple was trying to move away from the millipede. And then Prabhupada looks at that disciple and says, please chant some Hare Krishna for the millipede as well. Even that will get liberated and benefited. So he was so compassionate, he always saw the soul even in a small millipede and many, many other creatures. So that is a Pandita. Pandita means he sees every living entity with equal vision. He sees a tree, an insect, an elephant, a human, a dog, a cat as souls. He will never differentiate between the bodies. So that is a Pandita, that is a self-realized soul. So we should understand this, very, very important. So this whole thing is very, very special, and that is why many people describe the soul as amazing. There are some people in Sattva-guna, they make things happen. There are some people in Rajoguna who see things happen. And people in Tamoguna, there are the people who wonder what happened. So you decide in what category you want to be. Actually, you are all very sattvic because already you are listening to Bhagavad Gita and all that goodness is already coming into you. So that is really very nice, wonderful. But I want to make it very clear here because it's very important to know. And this will also touch upon the question that was asked by Pramod earlier. See, the real problems of life is not, oh, I don't have money. It is not that I don't have good education. The problem of life is not that, oh, I don't have a car, I don't have an apartment. No, these are not the problems. The real problems of life are birth, old age, disease and death. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. The real problems of life. I have explained this before also, that how birth is a problem. Just imagine if you are tied up in an airtight bag for a few minutes, you will suffocate because you cannot breathe. But a child within the mother's womb is there in that airtight bag for 9 months. And that to turn upside down. The head is down. And then there are small insects which are biting the soft skin of the baby inside the mother's womb. There is so much of malamutra in the mother's womb. So in that condition, it is a very painful situation for the child within the mother's womb. The Vedas describe this. So more than the mother who is delivering the baby, it is the pain of the child which is extreme. And that is when we were in our mother's womb, we all have prayed and we promised the Lord, my Lord, please take me out of this hell. And I will come and serve you when I come out. We all have promised. We have given this promise to the Lord. But what happens is, the moment we come out of the mother's womb, we forget this promise. Because now we are surrounded by loving parents who will say, oh Chiku Chiku, you are so cute, you are so beautiful, you are so wonderful. And then you start smiling. And when you start smiling, your relatives will become happy. But that is when the problem begins. Your small child is having continuous crying. The child is crying again and again. The mother thinks, oh, my child is hungry, let me feed. And she is feeding the child, but it is still crying. Why? Because the child is unable to explain to the mother, Mother, it's not that I'm hungry, I'm already full, but the ant is biting me. Please take off that ant from my body. See, it cannot explain, it cannot speak, the pain is there. The child doesn't want to go to school. I'm sure Lasya and Dave, they don't want to go to school. But still, they are forced to go to school. They don't want homework, but they are given homework. They don't want assignments, they are given assignments. They don't want examinations, but they are given examinations. Like that, if you analyze your whole life, it is only problems after problems after problems. The gap between two problems is what we call as happiness. The gap between two problems is what we call as happiness. An intelligent person should think, oh my God, birth is a problem, death is a problem. Nobody wants to die. Death is a great problem, root cause of all the pain and fear. Old age, nobody wants to become old and grow old. That's why this whole cosmetic industry is growing so much. Wrinkle-free creams and this cream and that cream to make you look young. So much, but still you will become old one day. Still the wrinkles will come, you will be forced. Disease, nobody wants, but you see, one after another, Corona is come. You find a vaccination for Corona, something else will come later. So, all these things cannot be stopped. So, these are the real problems. Birth, old age, disease, death. But the interesting thing, these four things are not applicable to the soul. The soul is not taking birth. The soul is not going to die. The soul is not going to get disease. And the soul is not going to become old. So wonderful, so amazing. All that was applicable to the body is not applicable to the spirit soul. So wonderful. So now when Pramod is asking me a very interesting question which we had discussed in the earlier session, very interesting scientific formula for reincarnation. Dave, you mentioned earlier. What is the law of conservation of energy? Energy is neither created nor destroyed, but energy gets transformed from one form to another form. Isn't it? So similarly, right now, Pramod, you have a certain energy within you, in your body. I have a certain body. So this energy is actually coming from the soul. So this energy, according to science, is neither created nor destroyed, but this is going to get transferred from this form of Pramod to some other form in the next life. So there is no cessation, there is no death to the soul. So wonderful. That is why the soul is so amazing. So we should understand and study more and more about this soul. So let's go and understand little more about the soul in the next sloka, very interesting sloka. And let me see who is there today. Okay, Vinodji is also there. So let me call upon Vinodji and let's chant this very beautiful and nice sloka, the 30th sloka.
Yes.
Dehi nityam avadyoyam
Dehi nityam ayodhyam
Dehe sarvasya bharata
Dehe sarvasya bharata
Tasmat sarvani bhutani
Tasmat sarvani bhutani
Natvam sochitum arhati.
Natvam sochitam arvasi.
Once again, Vinodji, wonderful. Dehi nityam avadyoyam
Dehi nityam ayodhyam
Dehe sarvasya bharata
Dehe sarvasya bharata
Tasmat sarvani bhutani
Tasmat sarvani bhutani
Natvam sochitum arhati.
Natvam sochitam arvasi.
Wonderful. Please repeat the translation. O descendant of Bharata,
O descendant of Bharata,
he who dwells in the body
he who dwells in the body
is eternal
is eternal
and can never be slain.
and can never be slain.
Therefore, you need not grieve
Therefore, you need not grieve
for any creature.
for any creature.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So here, very nicely Krishna is saying, Dehi nityam avadhyoyam. Dehi. Deha means body. Dehi means one who possesses the body. And who is that possesses the body? The soul. And that soul is nityam avadhyoyam. So it is never going to be slain by anything, which Krishna has already explained before. So tasmat sarvani bhutani, very interesting. Krishna is saying that this characteristics of the soul, that it is eternal, is sarvani bhutani. There are some sections of the society who say that human souls are different and animal souls are different. So they say that when you kill an animal, there is no problem because that soul will just end when it is died. But only human, if a human dies, then he will go either to heaven or hell. Because our soul is different from the animal soul. This is a concept also in the society. Some people talk about. But that is not what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying, Sarva Bhutani. This soul, whether it is in animal form, whether the soul is in some aquatic form, whether it is in a bird form, whether it is in a human form, the soul in Sarva Bhutani is actually the same. It is eternal. All the souls in different bodies, they reincarnate. All the souls in different bodies, they reincarnate. It's not only the human who reincarnate, but every other species also will reincarnate. So this is what Krishna is telling in this, and very interesting, if you have observed and if you have noticed, constantly in the previous few shlokas, what Krishna is saying, Natvam sochitum arasi. He is saying that again, why tatraka paridevana, why you have to lament, Natvam sochitum arasi, Natvam sochitum arasi, Nainam sochitum arasi. Constantly, if you see, he is saying, do not lament, do not worry. Do not lament, do not worry. Actually, this is one of the topmost and the best instruction that Krishna has given in the Bhagavad Gita. Do not lament. Do not worry. Do not worry is the nice motto of life we should have. Don't worry. Because when you know that the problem itself does not exist, then you don't have any problem. You don't have to worry about it. So Krishna is telling right now, you have only created problems in your mind. They are all mentally created by you. But in actuality, in reality, these problems do not exist. So why worry? If you carefully analyze, most of the problems are created in the mind. Most of the problems. They do not even exist in reality. Most of the time, people are anxious. They lament because something that has happened in the past. They think of the past. Oh, in the past I lost my necklace. In the past I lost my bike. That gives them pain. Or they will be thinking about the future. What will happen to me in the future? Will I become a professional? Will I become this or that? So either your mind is in the past or in the future. So none of these things are actually reality and actuality now. But thinking of them, you will become worrisome. You will become only lamenting all the time about certain things. Krishna is saying, don't worry. This should be the principle of life. Don't worry. And this state of don't worry will come only when you know your true identity as a spirit soul. If you want to take away all the problems of life, please understand that you are a spirit soul. When you start understanding, even theoretically accept that yes, I am a spirit soul, most of your problems will just evaporate. It will just evaporate. They will not even be there in your life. So I hope that you are all wanting to get that experience, that it is possible. I'm telling you, it's very much possible. It's an amazing thing. So, with this verse number 30, we have actually finished the second section where Krishna has now told Arjuna all that has to be understood about the soul. Many more things we will understand going forward, but Krishna has touched upon many different aspects of the soul. How the soul is indestructible, how the soul is nitya, how the soul cannot be destroyed. So many things, so that Arjuna does not have an iota of doubt. He should not have any iota of doubt that we are spirit soul and not this body. So this is very interesting, and this is the foundation for spiritual life. All the different concepts that we are going to discuss in the Bhagavad Gita going forward will actually be based on this concept of the soul. Actually, it's not a concept, it is a reality called soul. Only when we know that yes, we are soul, all other things like karma and all the material energy, prakriti, everything will be very easy to understand. So that is why Krishna has stressed so much on this particular thing, that you are not the body, you are the soul. Very important, very extremely important. So, another very interesting shloka, and I want to touch upon this, and then I will take question answers. I will completely open up for question answers. One more verse for today, and let's discuss this verse. It's very interesting, and let's chant this. So, I'll give another chance to Lasya because she was not there last session. So can you please unmute and repeat this shloka? Swadharmam api chaveksha
Swadharmam api chaveksha
na vikampitum arhasi
na vikampitum arhasi
dharmyadhi yudhyat shreyonyat
dharmyadhyayuchat Udhacherunyat
kshatriyasya na vidyate.
Kshatriyasya na vidyate.
Let's do that once again. Swadharmam api chaveksha
Swadharmam api chaveksha
na vikampitum arhasi
na vikampitum arhasi
dharmyadhi yudhyat shreyonyat
dharmyadhi yudhyat shreyonyat
kshatriyasya na vidyate.
kshatriyasya na vidyate.
Translation. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya,
Considering your specific duty as Kshatriya,
you should know
you should know
that there is no better engagement for you
that there is no better engagement for you
than fighting on religious principles.
than fighting on religious principles.
And so there is no need for hesitation.
And there is no need for hesitation.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. So let's understand this. And it's very important shloka again. Swadharmam apichadeksha. Swadharma. Let's understand this term, Swadharma. What is this Swadharma? Swa, me, dharma, my dharma. Swadharma means my dharma. So now, since we are in this body, we have two types of Swadharma. I will explain to you, this is very important. As a spirit soul, I have a Swadharma, and since I have this material body, I also have another Swadharma. So first, let us understand the Swadharma of the soul. This is very nice when you want to explain someone what is religion. See, if you open the dictionary and look at the definition of religion, it is explained as a kind of faith. Religion is defined as a kind of faith. But you see, the faith can be changed, because today someone is a Hindu, he can become a Christian can become Hindu, or he can take up Islam, or anything. The kind of faith can change. But is this what religion means? No. According to Bhagavad Gita, dharma is not equivalent to the English word religion. Religion and the Sanskrit word dharma are not equal. So then what is dharma? Dharma means that which is very intrinsic to you. Let us understand by an example. If you take sugar, sugar is sweet. The dharma of sugar is to give sweetness to you. If you separate the sweetness from the sugar, then it is no more called as a sugar. Have you any time tasted a sugar which is not sweet? No. Sugar means it has to be sweet. The dharma of sugar is to give sweetness. So the intrinsic property, the inseparable property of sugar is sweetness. It cannot be separated from it. Similarly, fire. You take fire. Fire has a property of giving light and giving heat. So the two intrinsic inseparable quality of fire is to give heat and to give light. So the dharma of fire is what? The dharma of fire is to give heat and light. Have you seen any fire which does not give heat and light? If you want to experiment, you can experiment. You just take any fire, either candle fire or fire on the stove. You see any fire, they will have these two properties of giving heat and light. So what it means, heat and light are intrinsic, inseparable quality of fire. Without these two characteristics, fire has no meaning. So now, when I and you, we are all spirit soul, we are spirit soul, what is that intrinsic, inseparable quality of our spirit soul? Does our spirit soul also have a dharma? What is that dharma? Just like fire dharma is to give heat and light, sugar dharma is to give sweetness, then as a spirit soul, what is my dharma? What is that intrinsic inseparable quality? The scriptures say that is to serve and to love. The intrinsic inseparable quality of the soul is to love and to serve. This is the dharma, this is actual religion of the soul. You see any living entity, it will do these two things, to love and serve. You take a dog, it will love and it will serve. It is serving its master, it is loving its master. Even the wildest animals, the lion and tiger, although very ferocious, it will love its cubs, is it not? And it will love its cubs. So love is there also. You take birds. There are some birds called also as love birds, is it not? They love and they are also serving. You take our politicians. In big lectures, in bhashans, they will say, "हम आपकी सेवा में हैं, हम इस जनता प्रिया हम अधिकारी हैं." So I love my nation and I want to serve all of you. They may also say, but they do not do that. That's another thing. But anyway, to love and to serve is intrinsic, inseparable quality, whether you are Indian, African, American, Japanese, Chinese, Australian, Indonesian, anything you can be, but this is an intrinsic, inseparable quality. This is the true religion of the soul, to serve and to love. But right now, this dharma is directed towards temporary material things and people. I love my things, I love my father and mother, which is essential, but they are all directed to temporary things and temporary people. So what spirituality is doing is, what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, is to redirect our swadharma of the soul to love and to serve that Supreme Lord, Krishna. This tendency that we have to love and serve should now be redirected towards Krishna. Otherwise, we are all loving. You see, in America, because they are all nuclear families, in fact, there are no nuclear families also, they are only people who are singles, and because they are single, they don't have anyone to love at home, they keep dogs, not one dog, they will have a family of dogs. Why? Because they want to show their love. That is there, our intrinsic nature, to love. So this is true religion. Anybody who is teaching us to serve and love God is a true religion. It is not simply so-called Hinduism, Christianity or Islam. True religion will teach us how to love and how to serve. That is the swadharma of the soul, of the spirit soul. So this is the swadharma of the soul, to love and to serve, intrinsic inseparable quality. Let us understand the swadharma at the bodily platform. So very beautifully Krishna in the 4th chapter 13th verse, Krishna is saying Chatur Varnyam Mahasrishtam Gunakarma Vibhavata. Krishna is saying that he has created this Varna and Ashrama system. There are 4 Varnas. There are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And 4 Ashrama, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. So 4 Ashramas and 4 Varnas is what forms this society. Brahmana, an intellectual class of people, the brain of the people, the brain of the society is called the Brahmana. Kshatriyas, one who protects or one who defends us, one who are into administrative positions, the arms of the body, arms of the society, Kshatriyas. Vaishyas, the mercantile class, the business class, though these are the Vaishya class who protect the cow and Krishi, they protect the agriculture. So these are the stomach of the society, the business class. And then there is Shudra class. Shudra class means the legs of the society, one who takes the orders of the above 3 classes. They are skillful people. They are very skillful in certain things. They cannot think, but they can do a lot of skillful things. So now, this is how the society is divided. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. And according to our inclination, we need to work. But today, unfortunately, what is happening in today's modern education system, everybody is forced to either become an engineer, doctor. If you don't become an engineer or doctor, you are a failure, especially in India. If our children do not become engineer or doctor, then they are failures. This is the idea that we have. This has to change. Krishna is saying that these things, the society is based on guna karma vibhagasa, based on one's characteristics, guna, and his actions, karma, his inclinations, they have to be directed. But today, modern education system put everybody into the same system, common entrance exam. Everybody has to write a common entrance exam. There is a situation like, you call a monkey, you call an elephant, you call a fish, you call a turtle, and then there is a common entrance exam. What is the common entrance exam? Who will climb the tree first? Obviously, the monkey is the one who will quickly go and climb the tree first. But it is unfair, isn't it? Because the monkey has its own guna and karma. Elephant is having its own guna and karma. The elephant may not climb the tree, but the elephant can actually pull down the tree. It has the strength. So, what has happened in modern education system is, somebody has a natural inclination for music, but he is asked to become an engineer. He will go crazy. Why many students and children are dissatisfied today is because parents do not identify the inclinations of the children. Children have a certain inclination, the guna and karma, which is not identified. And then they are told, no, you become this, you become that. And based on the societal pressure, they are supposed to become something which they don't like to be. Do you think that child will be happy? Never he will be happy, and that is what has happened to most of us. That we wanted to become something, but we were forced and we were asked to become something else. And when our guna and karma is completely not in alignment with what we are doing, it creates a lot of dissatisfaction. And this is the reason why many people are dissatisfied today. They are doing something against their inclinations, against their passions. But just imagine if somebody acts in line with his passion, he will be really very happy and satisfied. Although he may earn little less money, but he will be very satisfied. Many people are in the C-suits, CEOs and CFOs and CTOs. They may be earning a lot of money, but they are still dissatisfied. Why? Because it is against their passions, against their inclination. So, especially those parents who are listening and understanding this, please identify what is your child's nature. And that is what the Gurukul system used to do earlier. Arjuna was not taught anything other than archery or anything other than military science, because it was his nature to be a Kshatriya. It is his nature to be a Kshatriya. And that is why Krishna is saying here, oh Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya, and as a Kshatriya, please perform your duties. Krishna is saying that it is a Dharma Yuddha. Dharma Yati Yuddha Shreyamya. You had asked me earlier, what is Shreya for me in the 7th verse? Krishna, you tell me, Nishchitam Bruhitanya. What is the real Shreya for me? I am telling you, as a Kshatriya, the real Shreya for you is to fight this Dharma Yuddha. That is what, as a Kshatriya, you are supposed to do, to protect. And if you don't fight, just imagine, Arjuna told, no, Krishna, it's very painful, I don't want to fight. And Krishna also told, oh Arjuna, it's true, why should we kill all these people? Let's go for a nice ride. So, on the battlefield, instead of fighting, if Krishna would have just taken Arjuna to some other place, to some forest, oh, let's go and have nice fun on a long ride, we will go. What would happen? Duryodhana will create a chaos in the whole society. He will disturb the society. What happened to Draupadi alone will now happen to many women in the society. So that is why Krishna is saying, Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya and you should fight. So that what your wife has experienced, not the other women of the society, should actually be exploited. Duryodhana will create this disturbance in the society. That is why violence has its place. It has its utility. We should not think that there should not be violence. We should not be the propagators of non-violence. No, violence has its utility. Are we not committing violence every day? When you take the vegetables and eat, are we not killing the vegetables? It's violence. You take the milk, it's violence against the cow. You can consider it like that. You take honey, it's violence against honeybees. They are working so hard. You take silk from silkworms, it is violence against silkworms. But violence is there everywhere. Can we avoid violence? No. Just because there is violence, do we have to stop doing all these things? No. We should understand violence in the right understanding. Suppose if there are people who has committed a rape or he has committed a murder, should he be punished or not punished? No. If you punish him, then he will experience a lot of pain. So a lot of these humanitarian people will come. These people, people who promote humanity, they'll come and say, no, we should not give capital sentence to these people. And that's why Nirbhaya case, it took so many years. Danda Niti has to be followed. Giving punishment is also very important. Although it is painful, but it is important. If there is no punishment, there is no law and order in the society. So Krishna is telling, you need to fight Arjuna because you have to create law and order in the society. So punishment is important. Dandaniti has to be followed. So there are a lot of people, and this was an actual situation in Russia, where the Orthodox Church in Russia, they said Bhagavad Gita is a book of violence. It is promoting violence. What nonsense it is. No, it is not book of violence. It is actually telling you Swadharma. It is talking about your true duty. Although Krishna is talking about violence, but that violence is an essential violence. So any contempt against Bhagavad Gita should not be tolerated. So here that is why this is a very important test that Arjuna is facing right now. It's a very big test for Arjuna. Now because he is a Kshatriya, he is a great warrior, his fighting skills will be tested on this battlefield. Extremely important. So you see, there are so many beautiful things Krishna has explained here, and we need to really apply these principles as much as possible, understand what is our true religion, and start making some lifestyle changes so that we start getting closer to the Supreme Lord. Extremely important. Alright, so we have got hope so that some good food for thought for the next 1 week. So keep contemplating on all the thoughts that we have discussed. Very important points. Let me take questions now. I have a lot of questions on Open Talk as well, and Pramod and everybody else. I'm going to take all the questions. Just stay on. I just want to take up the sequence of questions that are there on Google Meets right now. And since I have some time, I will definitely take your questions on Open Talk as well. So let me take some questions if there are any here. So Dave is asking, Prabhuji, we will rejoin in 10 minutes, okay? No problem. No problem, okay? So they could rejoin. Then Vinod is asking, what happens to the soul after moksha? So what happens is, just like I gave you an example of, having a dream. So in a dream, you are visualizing I am a king, and in a dream you are visualizing that you are moving across the world, you are having a world tour, you are having a lot of fun in the dream. But when you wake up, that reality is gone. So what happens now is, this whole life is a dream. And when you actually wake up from this dream and go to the spiritual world, moksha, then you will have an amazing experience to be with Krishna, to eat with Krishna, to play with Krishna, to enjoy with Krishna, to dance with Krishna. Nitya Leela is happening. You are with the Lord and you can enjoy all these things that you are doing right now with your family. You are enjoying with your family, right? You eat with them, you nicely enjoy with them, you play with them. All these interactions between your family members gives you lots of pleasure. Now, this family life is actually the perverted reflection of the actual family that we have in the spiritual world. So we should not think that there are no families there in the spiritual world. No, it is there. Because it is there in the spiritual world, it is there in the material world. Anything that is not there in the actual object, it cannot be in the reflection. Bimba and Pratibimba. A reflection in the mirror cannot have a watch if the subject itself is not wearing a watch. So reflection will have everything that is there in reality. So all these families, these relationships that we see in this world is there in this world because it is there in the spiritual world. Because this world is a reflection. So now what happens is, all that you are doing here, after moksha, you will be doing it with the spiritual family. What a wonderful thing. And in that spiritual family, there is no separation. Vinodji is so wonderful, no? Here in this family, we lose people. We have to sometimes forcibly take away. They are taken away from us. But in that spiritual world, there will be people, we have a family which is going to be eternal with us. Oh, what an amazing thing that is. So that is moksha, and that is what we are looking for. To rejoin with our eternal families. Don't we have to do that? Yes, we need to do that. Just like, when you are traveling, when you are traveling in a train from one place to another place, suppose you are coming from Mumbai to Bangalore, and then as you are getting closer to Bangalore, you will not sit. You will be so excited, you will be going near the door, the compartment, the bogie door, and trying to peep out and see, oh, what's happening, Bangalore is coming or what. You are so excited. So in that way, you should be now excited because you are in the human form. You are getting closer to the spiritual world. Come on, let's wind it up. Let's wind up this material life and go to the spiritual world. Rejoin with our wonderful family. Let's do that in this human form. So that is what will happen when we get moksha. So Vinodji is asking, if there is God inside all of us, then why people commit heinous crimes? Very important question. So there is something called as free will. Vinodji, there is the Supreme Lord is called Swarat. Swarat means completely independent. You see, because Krishna is Swarat, completely independent, and we are part and parcel of that Supreme Lord who is completely independent, we also have a minute independence. And that minute independence which we have as a spirit soul, Krishna will not interfere with that. Krishna will not interfere with your free will. There cannot be love if there is no free will. You have to ask me this question again, Vinodji, in one of our future sessions, because I am going to touch upon this free will. It's a very beautiful concept, but I want to give a context to it so that we can understand more better. But we have a free will, and Krishna never interferes with that free will because he is very compassionate. We will understand this a little more in detail in our future session because it needs some context. So Dev is asking how to find our guna to align it with our karma. So Dev, and actually even Dasya also, because they are quite young, and this age they need to understand what is their inclination. If you want to know what is your inclination, you have to talk to me in person. Because in discussion, only when I understand you better, I can at least help and identify what is your true inclination. And then you can start working around it. Okay? So if you want to know more about it, if you want to understand more about your inclinations and your passions, then you need to talk in person and give me a call anytime, then I think we can understand it more better. Okay, Dave? Okay. So Achyutanji is asking, is soul life? Exactly. Achyutanji, you are right. Because soul is what is actual life. This body is not life. Body has no life. Body has life because the soul is there within us. But the moment the soul leaves, which is life, the life leaves from this body, the body becomes dead. You see, this is what happens. So, absolutely, the soul itself is life. But by the way, when I say life, it is a life force. It doesn't mean soul is the life between your birth till death. not that life in understanding. When I say soul is life, I mean soul is a life force. That force which animates all this life between birth and death. So that is what the soul is called. It's an electrifying. Without electricity, nothing works. No gadgets or nothing, no other electrical equipment will work. Electricity is what actually gives the life force to the electrical equipment. So similarly, this whole body gets electrified because of the soul. The soul is the animating force. So hope that answers your questions as well. So I have some wonderful questions here on Open Talk as well. So my dear devotees on Google, if you have any more questions, you can feel free to ask. If not, then I am really thankful that you could join today as well, and I am going to meet you again next Sunday. Okay, I am going to take some questions on Open Talk. If you want to continue and listen to the questions here, it is your free will, and you can continue to listen. If you want to exit and you want to continue with your work, we'll definitely get back again next Sunday, and I will be sharing the recorded session of the previous session as well as today's session very soon for you. So now I will take some questions on Open Talk, and let me take, and anyone who want to continue here on Google, you can continue, it's your choice. Alright, I see, I'll take them later. Okay, because you go ahead, let's see. I'll take a question, I'll take a question later.
Okay, so just tell me one thing. Actually, in this distress time of the lifestyle, okay, the lifestyle of people has totally different, okay. Even no people are getting time to even go through the Gitas, even the Ramayanas, even any of the spiritual things. So how do you find the spiritualism in India? It is going to exist for a long time, or it is going to die?
Okay. So since this is the beginning of the Kali Yuga, and we are right now 5,200 years into Kali Yuga. The total span of Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years. So there are about 4,27,000 more years yet to come. And spirituality, actually this is the golden period of the Kali Yuga. It is called the Kali Yuga, the Satya Yuga. So right now we are in the Kali Yuga, the Satya Yuga. So we are very, very fortunate to be in this time frame of Kali Yuga. But as Kali Yuga progresses, there are going to be very horrific things that will come up, and spirituality will now increase. It is going to increase for the next 10,000 years. It is going to reach its peak. But after 10,000 years, the Kali's influence will become much more, and gradually spirituality will start dwindling down. So that is after 10,000 years. So at least for the next 10,000 years, we have lots of hopes. But after that, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. So that is how there are, and yes, Ram Gopal is already here, and he had a question earlier. So when we got stuck to take decisions, then what should we do? So actually, decision making becomes very, very simple when you have knowledge. But since proper knowledge is not there, that's why we are unable to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. So when you have a proper knowledge about, oh, this is what is good and this is what is not good. So Bhagavad Gita, what it does is, it tells you this is good and this is not good for you. So when you know what is good, then it will be a very good inspiration for you to perform action. See, many people, since childhood, they are eating non-vegetarian food. They don't know whether it is good or bad. They just know that it is very tasty and they are just going on eating. But when you get an idea, oh, it is not actually good for me, then it becomes very clear for you whether you should eat or not. So that is how knowledge helps. Unless people don't have knowledge, it becomes very difficult to take decisions. Extremely difficult to take decisions. So if you want to ramp up your knowledge, then you need to keep listening to such wonderful talks. Either here on Tapri, or many great people are there who are sharing this wonderful knowledge on spirituality. Only then, actually decision making itself is a topic in itself, and I definitely want to touch upon, and I will have a session on decision making itself, because there are so many beautiful points I want to discuss on decision making, and I am going to have that very soon.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. But yeah, even I have just given the messages on Telegram to you. Okay, and I hope I will get the responses from your side.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to respond to you, and for evening, I will send you a link. If you are free, you can feel free to join. And today evening, we are talking about karma. We are whole discussion today at 6 p.m. It's a live chat, it's a video chat on Google Meets. I will send you the link very soon. And we are having a very interesting topic on karma today. So let's discuss this
Okay,
evening. And we have so many wonderful things to discuss.
Okay, it's nice really talk to you, and even when people just enlighten themselves by the spiritual things. Okay, the spiritual things even make you satisfied in the life. Even nothing happens in this world that can give you the satisfaction, but the spiritual things that can really give you the satisfaction in this life. So I'll be very happy and to just connect you on that channel if you just gives me that all ideas. Thank you very much to have such kind of conversation.
Definitely, Vikas. Very nice talking to you, and we'll get in touch very soon.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Take care, Vikas.